Good morning, welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Quite a lot of you in the chat already, which is good to see. I think we're only something like 17 subscribers away from 24,000, so if you haven't subscribed, please do get into that 24,000 subscriber count. Anyway, there's been a lot of chat about the Celtic manager's role. Some of it you might not like, some of it you may like, but let's jump over to the odds checker and see what the odds are for certain people, because there's one person that is getting backed that may not be a favourite of some of the Celtic fans. Let me just move that down there. We could look at Martin O'Neill. He's at 2-1 to get the Celtic job on a permanent basis, or till the end of the season anyway. Kieran McKenna's still in there at 11-2. Kudson is at 6-1. Wilfred Nancy is at 6-1 also. Postecoglou is 13-2, but he's not going to come back. I think that's a wild card one, that one, if anything. Lee Carsley, he's not going to get the job. I think that Celtic fans would go into meltdown. Then there's the Robbie Keane situation. Robbie Keane's still sitting at 8-1 this morning, and that's an interesting one, because there's a lot of people been talking about Robbie Keane maybe getting the job after his exploits at his last couple of clubs and winning things. I think that would be one that Celtic fans may not like. The fact that Craig Bellamy, he's went down to 12-1 now. Mark Van Bommel, he's 12-1 also, and then Nicky Hayen, he's 16-1. But there's one person that hasn't really been named in the odds, and it's Sean Maloney. Could Celtic be ready to give Sean Maloney the job until the end of the season? I think a lot of that will go on what happens tomorrow evening. And would it be a downgrade? I think it would be a downgrade on the manager. Look, he's a great coach, but I don't think he's number one. You did see at the semi-final at the weekend, especially when it came to the talking in extra time. It was Sean Maloney that was doing a lot of the talking to the players, and Martin O'Neill was kind of standing behind them, which I think is strange. You think that Martin O'Neill would be doing the motivation and, the team talk, but Sean Maloney seemed to be in a position of power when it came to the players anyway. And will Celtic look at that and go for the cheap option? I want O'Neill or Ange. It's not going to be Ange. Ange has said in many times that he never goes back to a club. He said it's like an ex. You don't go back to an ex, do you? So you definitely don't go back to clubs. I don't think that Ange Postecoglou is a realistic. He will want to get another job either down in England or in Europe. He's all about testing himself, going to the next level. When you look at his CV, he's always went to the next level kind of thing. But, we can all dream. But there's one way to look at it. Ange likes the 4-3-3. The exact same stuff that we had under Brendan Rodgers. I think that going forward, Celtic need a manager that is not going to play a 4-3-3 system, because football's changing, football's evolving. There's a lot more managers that are going away from the way that some of the top managers, and they're going for a 4-2-3-1 formation. There's the formation that we're going to see the team play tomorrow night. That's nowhere near the 4-3-3, and it's very effective. And talking about that, an ex-Celtic player has been talking to the media. Remember Eric Shevchenko? Absolutely cracking player for Celtic. He moved to Celtic back in 2016, nearly 10 years ago now. He says he had an incredible time there, but he also came through the system at Midtjylland, and he said, look, he's looking forward to it. He said it's going to be a good game. When asked about their impressive form in Europe, he said, look, they've had consistency in Europe. Don't look too much into their league table position. They are second in the league, but when you look at the goals that they've scored in the league, they've scored way more goals than the team that's top of the table. When it comes to the Europa, they've won 3 out of 3. So it's going to be a close game, he reckons. He said there's one player for them that scored 13 goals in 13 games. Something that Celtic have struggled with lately. But Celtic have a little player. we'll talk about him in a minute, that could make the jump up into the Europa squad. Shevchenko believes that Celtic's morale will be on a high after their Hampden win, victory over their Glasgow rivals. He said, look, it's a derby match. He said it was a massive win, and it was a massive win. And if you just look at the way that the fans, the way they've went into meltdown after the game, and the way that Celtic fans have been loving every minute of it since the weekend. He said if they hadn't had that game lift from Martin O'Neill, the club legend, things might have been different coming to Midtjylland. We were all dreading it, let's face it. I think we were all looking at the Midtjylland game, the Rangers game, the Midtjylland game, possibly being the last games for Brendan Rodgers, because let's face it, Brendan Rodgers would have lost that game, I reckon, at the weekend, the way that he played. He would never have played Callum Osmond. I think he'd maybe been forced to play Johnny Kenny, or he might have played Dyson through the middle. He would have started Rio Hatate. Let's face it, let's be honest. He would have started Rio Hatate, and that would have put us in an uncompromising position when it comes to what happened on the pitch. But we didn't. He left well before then. Martin O'Neill come in, and Eric Shevchenko says, look, I think it's going to be a close game now. Definitely. He says, we've got some good players at Midtjylland, that are technically gifted, but Celtic have some good players also. They have a striker from South Korea that's absolutely fantastic. They're a strong and balanced team, and they can score from anywhere. But so can Celtic. So we need to talk up the game here. We need to talk up the positivity. Shevchenko had also admitted that it's going to be strange to watch two of his former clubs battle out on a European stage. They've both got great players, passionate supporters, and it's two clubs that mean a lot to me, so I'll be watching it closely. Whatever happens, it's going to be a really good game. Unfortunately, it's not the type of game that you get a return match. It's not a game where you do get the return match. And I think that whatever happens, Richard said, still dreading it, but as they're a proper team, watched them a few times. Yeah, I watched them the other night, and they go forward like something else. I mean, Celtic are going to, but what it does do, and the way that they go forward, is it gives Celtic opportunities to hit at pace on the break, and the diagonal balls out from the back. Do you know those quick balls that Martin O'Neill likes out? That's where we can hurt them. Playing the way that... One way to look at it, we're actually in with a fighting chance. Because playing the way that Brendan Rodgers would play against this lot wouldn't work. Do you know, the slow build-up, they're trying to get play out from the back. They do like to push up. Celtic will need to be really defensive-minded tomorrow evening. And, we'll need to defend back in numbers. We'll need to help each other out in defence. It's going to be a tough game, but there will be opportunities. If you try and play it slowly out and you try and play it through them, they defend in numbers as well. They defend in big numbers. They come back and they double up on wingers and stuff. So it's going to have to be a case of, it's going to have to be quick balls out, balls over the top. How will they cope with that type of thing? Because I don't think it's a system that many modern managers are currently utilising. And especially at Europa level. I've seen it in the Champions League. Teams have changed it up a bit. Teams have went from the possession game to just trying to get the ball over and trying to get to goal. So anyway, we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow night. Let's talk about Callum Osmond, because Callum Osmond is a player that seems to be enjoying his time at Celtic. Sean Maloney was talking about him the other day, saying that he was a player that Martin O'Neill would enjoy using. Why did Brendan Rodgers not use him? Osmond was bombed out under Brendan Rodgers and put into the B team, sent to East Fife on a Friday night to play football, and drew a blank as the Celtic B team were absolutely embarrassed by East Fife. But Osmond always believed in himself. The Celtic frontman knew that his time would come at Celtic. He just had to be patient, as many Celtic players think. He said it's tough because you feel that when you're in the squad, the boys are great around you. You just want to contribute and help the team. It's tough in those moments, but you've got to keep working away. In those moments, you've got to face your friends when they're saying to you, what's going on at Celtic? What's happening? Why are you getting bombed into the B team? Why are you not getting a chance in the first team? Because let's face it, your strikers are drawing a blank. When you get those messages from your friends and family saying, we're coming to watch you again, And I reply, I'm not playing yet. It's all about patience. There's no need to rush anything, Callum said. And I like his attitude. I like Callum Osman's attitude. It brings out all the attributes of a player that could potentially go on to have a good career at Celtic. There's not a lot of pressure on Callum Osman. There's not a lot of pressure on him due to a big price tag. And this is why Callum Osman may have a fantastic career. Because Celtic fans love to push pressure on players. They did it with Adam Ida. They do it with Arne Engels. Callum Osman is coming in and he didn't cost us a penny. So there's no pressure on him at all. And I think that not having that weight on his shoulders, not having the Celtic fans going, this guy's shite, he's never Celtic standards, which people were maybe saying beforehand, but he's done it on a derby game. One of the biggest stages that you can do it against for Celtic. One of the stages that makes a player. Celtic rolled out all the goals that Callum McGregor has scored against Rangers over the years. Will they do the same with Callum Osman in years to come? Or will it be a case that he'll come to fruition, he'll make a name for himself in 2 or 3 years' time, he'll be sold? Typical Celtic way, won't it? But if he is sold in the future, hopefully it is for big money. He was then talking about, it's all about patience. Within that, he says, I'm very happy to be here, and I know it's just a patience game. Osman has never doubted his ability after making the switch from London to Glasgow. Obviously, my targets were to play, to get myself in the squad. He says, I wasn't really thinking about starting too much because I was playing at academy level at Fulham. I wasn't coming in here and thinking I was going to play every game. But I wanted to be in and around the first team, and I've just got to keep pushing and keep rising, and that's why Sean Maloney thinks that he's going to be an absolutely fantastic player. And he knew that Martin O'Neill would love working with Callum Osman because he would bring out the best of him. Arriving from Fulham at 19-year-old, there's no pressure on him at all, as far as I'm concerned. Being a teenager and handed that important role at Celtic, because there's a lot of pressure on Celtic strikers. And I think, for one, he could make the difference. Yes, Johnny Kenny will probably start the game, or will Iniesta start the game? Will Martin O'Neill decide to go for power, pace and experience up top and put Iniesta in? Will he change it to a 2 up front? Martin O'Neill's got a big decision with Sean Maloney tomorrow evening, and that's why a lot of the chat has been talking to Sean Maloney or Robbie Keane getting the Celtic manager in the last 24 hours. It's got a long way to go, that one, the Celtic manager. It's looking like that Celtic are going to have to pull a rabbit out of the bag to get the man that they want. There's no firm chat that Celtic have made real contact with anyone that they want to get the manager's job. That's all hearsay and stuff. I don't think that we're at the stage where we were when it was like, Celtic are in talks with Ange Postecoglou and everybody's like, who? But anyway, Osman, will he be the player that makes the difference tomorrow evening? An unknown quantity, an unknown entity to a foreign team. When you think about it, people have been talking about Shin Yamada, people have been talking about Callum Osman. There is a point where people are saying, look, should Shin Yamada's not in the squad. People may say that, look, Shin Yamada should maybe get in the team. I don't know what Shin's doing in training, but Callum Osman seems to be getting the nod way before him. And I think that Callum Osman will be the one who'll get the nod today. Mate, bring your passport with you because you're going to Denmark today with the Celtic squad. It'd be fantastic if he got told that last night and he turns up at Celtic training ground today with his passport. I mean, he'd be absolutely buzzing to have gone from the academy at Fulham, and people are saying down at Fulham, with the injuries they've had, he would have been a first team player at Fulham this year, but he wouldn't be playing in Europa League, would he? to go, the journey that young lad has been on over the last couple of months is absolutely phenomenal for him. He says, when Martin coming through on Tuesday, he said they met him, Sean Maloney said they met him for dinner. He says, there's players that I knew he would love, and he spoke about Callum Osmond, just from what he's seen him do on the training pitch. The feel-good factor's back at Celtic with 2 back-to-back wins. But there's a lot that still needs sorted out at Celtic. There's a lot that the Celtic fans will want to see sorted out. So I'm going to jump in as well. He's not in the European squad. I know he's not in the European squad, but he can be brought in, Mark. He can be brought in due to the fact that we have a long-term injury. I did a video about that yesterday. A long-term injury to Cameron Carter-Vickers. There is a rule in European football which will allow Callum Osmond or one of the other players to be brought into the squad due to the fact that Celtic have a long-term injury. And I think that Celtic would be crazy because currently they're a man down in the squad. Cameron Carter-Vickers won't make the trip. He's a man down. And I think that would be fantastic if he does get it. It's stupid if Kenny's not in the Europa. Kenny is in the Europa squad. It's Callum Osmond that's not. Anyway, we move on from that. So, other than that, it is all about the game tomorrow night. Celtic are going into the game, going to play a team that are second in the league, same as Celtic, but flying at the top of the Europa. Their captain has said that they want to come out and have a strong start against Celtic, a quick start. Having watched their game at home the other evening in the league on Monday night, you've got to say it's a tidy little stadium with quite a little bit of atmosphere. As Martin O'Neill takes the club in a European game for the first time in God knows how many years. The last time that Martin O'Neill managed in a European competition, he drew 0-0 at home with AC Milan. We finished bottom of the Champions League group stage that year. It featured Barcelona and Shakhtar Donetsk. And it was pretty much the end of Martin O'Neill as a manager at Celtic that year. I do remember that his wife wasn't keeping too well, which was ultimately the end of his managerial career at Celtic. Can Celtic get the result that is required tomorrow night? If Celtic win tomorrow, Sevconians are so mad they'll insist that their general manager wears I wonder if Iniacho will be back. He's not been mentioned recently. I'm not exactly sure how long he's out for. Martin O'Neill doesn't like giving too much away when it comes to that thing. And makes you think that there was a grudge 100% when he took the job. Rodgers, the outcome. All sorts of rumours about Nacho. Yeah, that was at the weekend. And he was in the squad. It was nonsense talk. Absolute nonsense talk. And I reckon it was a Sevconian that started that rumour. Anyway, just a quick one this morning. I will be back on this afternoon to do an afternoon update. See if Celtic make any in moves on the managerial role at Celtic. Will we be left with Martin O'Neill to the end of the season? Would he take it to the end of the season? Or ultimately, could we be left with Sean Maloney? Would Martin O'Neill stick around to help out the young Sean Maloney? It could be something that Celtic may think about. And let's face it, the Sevconians absolutely hate the fact that Martin O'Neill was in that manager's seat at the weekend. When you listen to the songbook, when you listen to the fact that they sang up to their knees in Fenian blood and the famine is over, why don't you go home? That was all aimed at one person, Martin O'Neill. They got their joyous bigotry songbook out to try and intimidate the Celtic legend. Martin O'Neill replied with goals galore as we beat Rangers 3-1 in the final. What time are you going to go on, Stephen? I'm going to go on roughly around about either 3 or 4 o'clock Celtic Park time. It'll be about 3:30 Celtic Park time. I'll be back on this afternoon. We'll do a little bit of an afternoon update to see if anyone has taken the man. We're not going to get any update, are we? Celtic have been very, very sneaky about the whole manager's job situation. Has someone turned them down? Possibly. Has there been anyone offered the job? I don't think so. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.